All right. You guys will just hit that little okay. Bear with me today, guys. We're going to be going over DotLoop, which means I'm going to be showing you the functionality of the system. Some of this might be stuff you already know. Some of this might be brand new to you. Basically, my goal here today is to talk about the system and kind of walk you through the different functionalities of it. In doing that, I will go through some of our documents and I'll kind of do a workflow. So in essence, I will show you how to get some templates set up for yourself, and then we'll go through the DotLoop as a whole. If at any point you have any questions, you just let me know. Because I am doing it that way, I will be jumping around quite a bit. So please feel free to chime in and just kind of raise your hand and let me know if you have any questions. I don't want to lose you. I will say real quick, most of the time, if we do this class in person, I encourage you guys to pull out your computer and kind of do it with me. Because we're doing it virtually, and I will be moving pretty fast, probably would recommend that you just kind of sit tight, soak it all in. I will be recording this like you just saw. So at any point, if you want to kind of go back, my recommendation would be to pull up your DotLoop and go through it side by side. But again, like I said, feel free to kind of stop me. All right, we're going to go ahead and jump on in. We're going to start off real quick. I'm just going to go over a few things before I dive in. Obviously, all of you are here for a reason, and I don't think any of you are completely brand new, but has anyone here used any other document signature platform? Amy,
No.
what platform did you use previously?
I use SkySlope.
Okay, cool. Very cool. I know some of the others that we'll encounter are going to be DotLoop, whatever the case may be. They're very similar. The only difference is DotLoop is kind of an all-in-one platform. So DotLoop is one of those ones where you can not only sign and organize your files, but it's also where you will house everything for compliance. So everything that you need for a given transaction will be in one place. You can house it there, and then you can use it in the future. The next time you go to work for that client, hopefully your offer gets accepted and you're kind of one and done. But just know that it's kind of everything in one place. In addition to all of that, we have templated documents that you can use above and beyond the standard ones that you encounter regularly. We've got some templates that we've created for choice by an attorney, things that we've encountered regularly, like appraisal addenda and things like that. It's also our place to keep up to date on the transaction, to update our systems based on when we're going to be closing, if we have any extensions and things of that nature. And then more than that, the part that we all care about is that we can submit to compliance, which is how we get paid. So you can also message Kelly through there. It's very user-friendly. We're going to go over all of that today. In essence, what I'm going to do in just a second here is I'm going to jump on it. I'm going to show you guys the dashboard and make sure we are set up properly. And then, like I mentioned at the beginning of this call, we're going to go through some documents. I'm going to talk about how I organize my folders and how I organize my DotLoop. And then obviously feel free to kind of cater that whatever way makes sense to your business. So we'll go ahead and get started. I am not a huge app person, but I will say before we get into this that the DotLoop app is something that I highly recommend, not only for ease of use, but also if you're out in the field. Let's say you've sent an offer out to a client and they come back and they say, hey, I actually really like this house. I want to up my offer. You can go ahead and easily hop onto the app and edit that document and reshare it without having to go onto your browser and log back in. It also will send you notifications as clients have signed things. So you in real time will know when you need to hop on and get that over to a listing agent, for instance, or you can know when someone has finally signed their listing agreement. So go ahead and download that whenever you have time. Jumping on in though, dotloop.com, very easy. This is where everything will live. When you sign on, this is the dashboard that you will see. So these are the loops that are associated with whatever filters you have set up. You can set these up in whatever way makes sense to you. For myself, what I've done is I tend to keep my dashboard very clean and simple. I archive anything that is not in use. I will always keep my document or my loops showing anything that is either under contract or anything that is in progress or anything, as you can see here, that is a template loop. Now, because I'm not in production, you guys don't see any of the properties here, but let's say I was in production. I'm just going to give you a quick example. We refresh it. Oh, what did I do? Hopefully, oh, there it goes, sold. And apply. then you will see that each property will come up as a loop. Now, if you have any experience with DotLoop, then I'm sure you know this by now. But one thing to really keep in mind as we're going through all of this is that each property is its own loop. Okay, so it is not necessarily per client, it is per property. We'll circle back to this in just a moment, but the reason it's called DotLoop is because in essence, every transaction is a given loop. So as you get started, then we're starting that loop. As you get closer to closing, it completes. And then once you close, then that circle is closed. And so that's why they call it that. Now, on our dashboard, there's a number of features. As you just saw, you can filter, so you can keep your dashboard nice and clean or search for things that you would like to. From here, you can also see an activity log, so you can see who's signed on, who's signed what's been sent, what's been shared. You can also search for items based on property or client name. So if someone reaches out to you and they're like, hey, I'm going to be refinancing soon, is there any chance you could send me this one document? Or hey, something is going on with my HVAC, can you reshare that HVAC inspection we had, right? Anything like that, you can go in and search for your client or that property. Now, if you have something archived, and we'll talk about archived in just a moment, but if you have something archived and you do a search, it very possibly might not come up. If that's the case, just click search all loops and you'll find what you're looking for, including ones that were completed or archived. Before we get into all of that, though, I do want to go ahead and hop on over and make sure that we have all of our profile information set up correctly. First and foremost, before we dive into that, on the left-hand side at the top of the page, you should see the Choice Residential logo and then premium next to it. Now, this is your standard login. We have a premium account, so you have unlimited access to documents and sending people things. For whatever reason, when Kelly first onboards you, though, so all of our onboarding documents are sent through DotLoop. When you're first onboarded, for whatever reason, it very often sends it to you in kind of a trial format, and you might automatically be logged into that if you haven't yet signed on to DotLoop. So just know if you have something other than these items up at your top left, then we need to sign you out and get you back into your other account. Otherwise, you should be good to go. So we're going to go ahead and hop on over and make sure everything looks good. You're going to click on your name in the upper right-hand corner, and we're going to click on My Account. Now from here, there's a ton of information. You guys know what to do, fill in most of it accordingly, mainly making sure that your name is in there and your email address. Like I said, as things are completed, as documents are signed by your clients, you will get email notification. So obviously we want to make sure our email is in there. You're going to add your phone number. You're going to add your job title. I typically type in broker/agent, our company name. But most importantly, aside from all of that, is our NRDS ID number. If you don't know that number, welcome to the party. Most of us don't. It's a completely random number. It's not your MLS number. It's not your license ID number. It's totally random. If you don't know it, no worries. Just go into Google and type that in NRDS lookup. From there, you can just type in, I believe it's your email. Oh, it's big, but your name and email, and it will literally just populate. It doesn't send you an email or anything. It's very user-friendly. So you'll go ahead and put that in there. The reason that we need that is because DotLoop is a very smart system. It works with templated documents. So they want to make sure that we are a licensed realtor. They're going to be pulling from the Realtor Association and using those documents. So we want to make sure that we are approving the fact that we are in fact a realtor so that we can use those templates. You have other options in there, like adding your photo and things like that. But when you have time, please be sure to update all of that. To go back to your home screen or your dashboard at any point, you're just going to click on the logo in the upper left-hand corner. Now, I already have a number of things set up, but we're going to start from the top. I'm a big believer in having your template set up. Obviously, I've been in the game for a minute now, but at this point, I can write an offer in probably about 15 to 20 minutes, as long as the disclosures and things like that are easily available to me, mainly because I have my template set up, which means that I am populating fields that are regularly filled out, non-specific to clients, and then I'm leaving all of the other fields open, and I'll fill those out specific to whatever that given situation may be. But then from there, I can copy those templates into a loop for a client and use them going forward. Now, give yourself some grace. When I was first getting started, it would take me about an hour and a half to write an offer. So all in good time, right? But templates will definitely dramatically help us streamline that process. So let's go ahead and jump into that. What we're going to do is we're going to start in the upper right-hand corner and click add loop. Now, one thing real quick, I know I spent a little bit of time on the dashboard, but just know there's a ton of things you can play around with here and do that when you have some time, sorting just like you would do on any other platform. We're going to click add loop. And for now, we're just going to type in probably 2023 templates. Now, one thing you will see as I started typing that, it is a smart system. It wants to provide information available to us based on other things that are active. Some of these pull from MLS, some of it pulls from Google Maps. We'll get into that when we're actually writing a document specific to a property or making a loop specific to a property. But for now, we're doing templates. So I'll go ahead and type that in. Keep in mind, this is something that you will have to make sure you set aside time to do each year. As you know, our documents come out in July. So even though I have some templates set up, I want to make sure I'm updating those because we don't want to be using outdated forms. After you type in the name of your loop, you will then have the option to select what type of loop you need. This is a required field. Most of the time, the ones that I'm using is either a new buyer template or a new listing template, residential, or then as you saw, I do a lot of referral. So I'll have a whole loop designated to my referral documents. And then that way everything is in one place. For now, I'll just click new buyer template. You have the option to upload a photo. Now, if you are doing a regular offer, right, we're pulling something associated with a given property, very often a photo will populate from MLS. If it doesn't, you can always go into MLS and take a screenshot and upload it. I do typically do that, or I do try to make sure that there is a photo in place when I have a property specific loop in place, just because at a glance, it makes things a lot faster to find. But for template loops, I normally leave that off. Continue to click through it. From there, I'm going to leave all of this blank. But again, if this was specific to a given property, then I would go in and select what type of status we have. I'm going to click view loop. And from there, it will take us to our standard dashboard for a given loop. Now, you're going to see a number of fields here. At Choice, we try to streamline as much as possible. And so what we've done is Kelly has added a number of placeholders for us. These are things that we either need to provide to our clients or are documents that we are going to be using specific to the contract process. Some of these have the documents already in there. Others have placeholders for documents that we can expect to upload once they're signed by the clients and by the associated party. We're going to go ahead and just start up at the top though. The top section, the top folder, these are documents that are miscellaneous. They are not required for compliance in any way, but these are documents that we will often provide to our clients. So typically, when I am doing my loops for my clients, I will minimize this folder or I will archive it altogether just to kind of clean things up. But because this is my template loop, I do want to go ahead and keep these in here because I will be providing these documents to my clients, typically during our buyer consultation. Now, as we know, when we're going through our offer to purchase or our agency document, we're going to be selecting that we have in fact provided samples of certain documents to our clients. So I always leave these up here. They can be very useful. All of the ones that are up in this section are samples, and so they will have sample written all the way across them. So our clients, once we provide it to them, cannot use it without us. Let's go through the functionality of a given loop real quick though. So as you can see, we have a number of folders. Typically, you'll find the miscellaneous documents for one folder. You'll have another folder for agency documents and another one for contract documents. As you saw, as I click on them, they consolidate. You can expand them again by clicking there. You can then add any document to a given folder by clicking, you guessed it, add document. From there, we can either browse things that we have downloaded, or we can upload a template from the portal that we already have access to. The standard folder that we will typically kind of live in for documents is going to be this one right here, the 2022-2023 NCR interactive documents. These are the standard ones that are provided by the Real Estate Commission. They automatically have fields populated so that you won't have to drop in text boxes. You're simply kind of plugging and chugging as you go. These are going to be things like your additional provisions addendum, maybe extensions to documents, anything like that, maybe a backup, a contract, right? So in here, you can go ahead and start typing anything that you need, and that given document will populate. Choice also has its own folder of documents, like I mentioned on the front end, things that we have created for our agents or agents have had created by attorneys. And so if you need something kind of specific, feel free to browse around in there as well. And then you also have another folder for sample documents that have that sample printed across the top of it. Along the right-hand side of any folder and any document are going to be 3 little dots. From here, you'll be able to see what you can do. Most notably, though, you can archive. If it is a document, you can make a copy of it and send it to a different loop. You can download it. You can also rename things. So you can do that by clicking those 3 dots and clicking rename, or you can just click on it itself. For this, I'm going to go ahead and rename this to print documents, because like I said, this is what I am printing out and bringing with me to buyer consultations. Okay, down below that are the documents that we'll use for agency purposes. I'm not going to go through too many of these right now because we do have videos showing each document. So if you need given access or instructions on how to fill those out, just let me know. But another thing to note real quick, if we open up a given document, we will automatically have a box pop up that will allow us to autofill some fields. So most notably, we're going to be either adding our buyer and we're going to be adding ourselves. Now, this is our template loop. So right now, we're just going to be adding ourselves as a buyer's agent. From there, you'll select person, and then your name should populate. You can click autofill. Now, the working with real estate agents disclosure is not one that I typically create as a template because it takes 2 seconds to fill out, right? But just something to know, I wanted you to know how you can populate those fields, how you can autofill it. Click yes. Okay. Going on down though, let's go ahead and go through the offer to purchase. So when we're doing this, you can go in and click add document. From templates, you're going to select that folder. Again, we're going to click the interactive documents. And I'm just going to start typing offer to purchase. Now, when we do this, we see a number of options come up. At any point, though, there are multiple documents that have the same name for different purposes. If we hover over them, we will see the full name of the given document. So we can tell that this one is for a vacant lot or land. This one is just the guidelines to that offer to purchase. This is the one that we're interested in, though. Ooh, the 2T offer to purchase, that's the one for residential real estate. I'm going to click copy, and it's going to go ahead and import it here. So we will see that at the top. Now, I've gone ahead and done this. So for now, I'm just going to go through this together. But just know, we're going to, like I said before, we're going to go through and we're going to fill out all of the fields that are pretty standard for any given situation. We're going to leave anything else blank that is specific to a client or to the property. So as we're getting started, when you first open this, again, it will give you an option to autofill. Because we're doing a template, I would go ahead and click away from that for now. Okay. When we're in here, though, obviously the first page of the offer to purchase, I'm going to be selecting the items that I most commonly see. In my experience, due diligence and earnest money checks or payments are typically checks. If your client decides that they would like to do a wire transfer or something like that, by all means, select those. Now, along the left-hand side, all of these fields are auto-populated so that they total together. So if I go in here, typically I'm going to be just doing our purchase price, our due diligence, and our earnest money. Maybe you are in the habit, instead of doing standard earnest money, doing additional earnest money, whatever the case may be. But whatever I typically do not use, I'm going to be adding 0 to. The reason I do that is because if I do NA, it will give me an error message here. So because these are synced and numerical, we need to make sure we're putting 0 in this field. Now, you might hear me say this a number of times, but I'm a strong believer that the little things that we do say a lot about how we will handle the rest of the transaction, both for our clients and in regard to our relationship with the other side. And I want to be as diligent as possible. And I want to be showing them that from the start. So any field that I do not plan to use, I want to be putting NA in. That will start on this process from the template side of things, just to save us time. Going on down, I'm going to leave this blank for now. I'll come back to that in just a moment in terms of the initials, because obviously that is specific to our clients. I typically go ahead and fill out the escrow agent. This is going to be the attorney that we use most frequently. If you have an attorney that you use, by all means, we do highly, highly recommend Sterling Law, though. We have a partnership with them. They are very good about not only being amazing for our clients, but being great resources to us if we need anything, being available to answer questions specific to a given situation in very short notice. So Sterling Law is who I put there. I will then scroll down and leave my due diligence and settlement date blank. Now, granted, please know I am going through these documents very quickly, again, because I'm showing you the functionality of DotLoop, not because I'm going over the documents today. So again, if you have any questions about the documents themselves and what different things mean, then let's chat offline and we'll go through that together. I'm going to keep on scrolling down. Now, like I said, anything that I'm not typically using or in the habit of using, I'm going to put NA in. So items that are not or leased and not owned, or items that do not convey, I'm putting NA in. Personal property, though, I typically leave blank because very often a buyer will ask for a fridge or washer, dryer, things like that. Scrolling on down, I'm going to keep it moving. Now, very often we will have a client that will be getting a loan. I'm going to leave that blank for now, but I will go ahead and add NA into the second mortgage loan section. Most of the time people are just getting one loan. Now, something to keep in mind though, especially with interest rates being what they are these days, if someone is doing a loan assumption, a buyer is assuming a loan from a seller, right? They very often or very likely will have two loans in that situation. They will have one specific to the loan they are taking over for the seller, but often that number is not the price that they are agreeing to for the home. That is just kind of the payoff number. And so your buyer would then likely have to get a second loan. If they are not paying cash for the balance, they're going to have to get a second loan for the remainder of that purchase price. So that's kind of one of those situations where you might expect to see that. Other than that, though, typically we're not getting a second loan. Going to go ahead and put NA in any other field that doesn't warrant it. I am manifesting that my clients do not need to sell in order to buy. So I am putting that they don't need to. Obviously, we can change that field if needed, but especially over the past 2 years or so, especially during COVID times when things were flying off the shelf, it was pretty well expected by sellers that buyers were just not going to have a contingent offer. So most of the time this is the case. Obviously, if it's a first-time buyer, they don't have anything to sell, but for now, I'm going to put NA there. Obviously, if they do have a property, we'll update that. 9 times out of 10, thankfully, the listing agents have done their job and have uploaded their disclosures to the document section of MLS. I'm going ahead and just selecting that we have received a copy of that. I already have selected that the sellers have owned the property for at least 1 year. Obviously, I'll be double checking with the tax records to ensure that that is the case. But for now, I'm going to select that because it's most common. As you know, if they sell it sooner than a year, then they're going to have some taxes that they have to pay that are pretty hefty. So most people try to avoid that if they can. It's pretty common that they've had it at least a year. Scrolling down, I typically will leave the HOA information blank, but I will put NA in the second association field just because they're not as common. They do happen on occasion, though. If you haven't run into that yet, typically those types of situations are for those large communities where it's kind of a master community that has detached single family homes in one section and townhomes in another section and maybe a luxury section, right? And so when that's the case, you likely will have kind of an umbrella HOA that will cover the whole neighborhood. And then you'll have another separate HOA specific to the area that you are in. So if you're in a townhouse community within that, you likely will have another HOA that you're paying because they're going to be covering your exterior maintenance, for instance. NA for now, though. Then we have all of the information associated with fuel tanks. Thankfully, we don't run into too many of those unless you get kind of out into the country. So I'll go ahead and put NA for all of those fields. Again, I know it seems repetitive, but I am doing it in every single field just because, again, I want people to know how diligent I am. I'm not leaving anything up to chance. I don't want buyers or sellers to ever feel like there is an opportunity that someone could fill something in without their knowledge. So I'm always filling in fields. Even I don't want anything to be blank. Continuing on down, I'm going to go ahead and add 0 for buyer paid or seller paid expenses. Obviously, more and more now, though, we are seeing situations where sellers are agreeing to that and buyers are making that ask. So hopefully you might have to change that. Hopefully your buyers will be able to get some money. But for now, I'll put 0. I typically will select no to the home warranty. And again, NA for all of that. You get the point. We're scrolling on down. If there's any addendum that have been added, then we'll put that in when the time comes. But what I always be sure to do is add all of my company information. In my opinion, this is one of the things that takes the longest to fill out when we're writing an offer to purchase. So I at least want to have my side of it done so that I don't miss anything. And that's pretty much it. So for now, for a template, we would then click save once you've gotten all of those fields taken care of. Not save and share, just save. All right, then I'm going to go back to my loop. Now, these are just for reference, but like I said before, we can then copy them into a loop specific to a client and to a property. So what I'm going to do now is go through it and pretend like we have a client, we're ready to write an offer, right? So what I did was I went on to MLS and selected a property that had some information. I'm going to go ahead and copy that. This is one of our agents. Let's see, Mona. Shout out to Mona. Way to go on your listing. I'm going to copy that and go back to my loop. Now I'm going to start from the top. So I'm going to click on my logo to bring me back to my dashboard, and I'm going to start by adding the loop. Now, name your loops whatever you feel comfortable. This is something I'll come back to in a minute when we send it to ourselves, but the thing to keep in mind is, please know that people will see the name of our loop. You can absolutely title the loop specific to your client if you would like to, but as you can see, loops are tethered to given properties. So if you go through and you add information for a given property for an offer to purchase and then disclosures and things like that, and you submit it and your offer does not get accepted, you can come back in and use that same loop for another property, but it is going to kind of spin you in circles. And I will say it will be pretty frustrating because anything that it wants to autofill will normally revert to that first property. So I would recommend titling it the name of the property. And then when you go on to do another one, if you must, then making a new loop for the other property. As you can see, it pulled it from MLS. I'm going to select that one. Yes, I would love for you to import the data for me. I'm then going to select continue. And again, I'm going to select the type of loop. Yay, a picture populated. Easy peasy. That'll be really nice when the time comes. I can easily see what document or what loop I need to click on. Now, like I said before, we can add status information from here. Typically, though, I like to do that in the loop itself. So I'm going to click View Loop. Now, that information that I was just talking about is going to be found right at the top. It is very important that we keep this information updated. A, for our own reference, but mainly because this is what we at Choice as a firm use to keep track of what is closing when, and we can use it in terms of knowing what we need to request in terms of documentation. If there's anything missing, this is kind of how we project how many closings are going to take place in a given month, et cetera. So please, please, please keep this updated. Start by updating it when you are first creating the loop. And then if anything gets extended or if you negotiate different terms for a purchase price, we're going to go ahead and update those when the time comes. But for now, it is a purchase. I'm going to select pre-offer, and we'll leave it at that for the time being. Now, again, as we talked about before, we have a number of fields. I likely will have previously provided this to my clients. That's a lot of documents in my opinion, and it's kind of what my eyes go to first though. I like a nice clean slate. So I'm going to remove these by archiving them. As you can see, it just kind of bumps it down and puts it in a gray area. At any point, if you need to see things that have been archived, you click show archived and it will show up again. You can always unarchive them if needed by clicking those three dots again. I'll click hide for now. Okay. Then what I will do is I will go back to the loop for my templates and I will make a copy of the documents that I have created and copy them to the loop that I had. I'm going to start with the agency document. I know we didn't go over that, but obviously that's something that we will do and we will need. Like I said, hit me up offline if you would like to go through that and create your template for buyer agency together. But I'm going to click those three dots and click make a copy. Copy as .loop document. When I am doing that, it keeps those fields that we are able to easily input information into active and easily editable. If we do it as a flat PDF, those completely go away. So just know that. I'm going to click to loop. I'm going to select the loop that I'm interested in, and more than that, the folder that I would like that document to go to. I'm going to click copy. Okay. If I would like to hop on over to the document right away, I can click view in loop. I'm going to do the same thing for our offer to purchase because that's what we're doing right now. Same thing goes, copy to loop, contract document. Wonderful. I'm going to hop over to that. As we can see, the document that I've copied over is going to be found right here. Now, as we said before, we have a number of documents that auto-populate. And so very likely you will already have a buyer agency agreement shown in here. That's going to be the blank one, not your own. So again, I will typically archive that one. When we're sending things to clients, I also like them to show up very clean and simple. I don't like the full document name because it just gets a little bulky to me. So again, if you want to edit a document name at any point, you can select those three dots and click rename. But if I'm working with real estate agents, for example, I'll remove all of the fluff around it. Now, we're not going to go into too much of that right now, but I do want to spend a brief moment talking about the ABA disclosure. On a brokerage level, anytime we have an association with any given company that we receive any sort of incentive from, if a client uses, we need to make sure we are disclosing that to the client. So we have created an affiliated business disclosure. This just talks about the title company that we have ownership interest in. It is important to note that anytime we are talking about an affiliated business disclosure, we must have our clients fill this out, even if they are not using that associated business in their transaction, for two reasons. One, we need to cover our bases and make sure all of our clients have the same thing, but also because we need them to know that they have the option to select these items. If we don't say it and it's not a part of our regular scripting, we can easily overlook this and they might not know that we have this relationship. And so as long as we are sending this document to them, it gives us an opportunity to have this conversation as well. And if we can save them some money, which most of the time, if we have a business relationship with the company, it's going to do that. Let's definitely provide that to our clients. There's nothing really to fill out here in terms of templates though, so I'll leave that for a given client. All right. Now, here is the offer to purchase that we were just talking about. I'm going to go ahead and fill that out in just a moment. But a few things to note real quick. When we are getting started in a given loop, obviously, like I said before, we're titling it specific to the property, but it's also going to be specific to a given client. So we want to go down and add the people associated with this property. You can do that down at the bottom, or you can do it when you are in a given loop. If you want to do it from the start, you can just click add person, fill out their name and their email address and their role. They're going to be their buyer. You can also send an intro email. I typically will do this as I'm getting started because it might take me a minute to get some documents to the client and I want to make sure I don't end up in their spam when that does take place. So this gives me a nice little way to keep them engaged while I'm drafting everything up. I'll just say, hey, check your email. You should have gotten an intro email from DotLoop. I'll be getting those documents over to you shortly. But in the meantime, I want to make sure you're going to be getting what I'm sending. I'm going to leave that off for now. We'll come back to it inside the document so you can see both ways we do that. Also, real quick to note, when you're adding anyone, there is additional information that it might occasionally ask for. It might ask for their address or things like that. might ask for their phone number. I never provide any of that. I only add their name, their email, and their role. Now, this is kind of going above and beyond, but just so I've said it, a standard script that I always use, no matter how well you know a client. They could be your best friend forever and ever. It could be someone you just met and you feel like you know them, right? Anytime I'm starting to draft documents for someone, I will say, hey, as I'm getting started, please send me a text with your full legal name as you would like it to appear in the contract, right? I could have known someone forever and know them as this name, but that could be their middle name. I'm that person, right? I go by my middle name. Most people know me as Kate, but my first name is Sarah. Granted, you don't have to have like your full name in the contract. It's totally up to them. They could go by their first and last name or middle and last name, whatever they're comfortable with. But we do not want to assume that, especially when they are signing everything. And this is a very large transaction. It puts it at the wrong, it starts it off on the wrong foot if we get their name wrong, right? So use that as your opportunity. And I always say, text it to me. I just want to make sure I'm spelling everything correctly. Always worth an ask. And the more casual you make it, the less of a deal they'll make it. They'll be like, you know, I'm like, I know, but I want to have it in writing from you. Right? All right. When I click on that document, like we saw before, we'll have an autofill box pop up. I absolutely want to use this when I'm filling out an offer to purchase. But if by any chance I'm in the middle of things and somehow I click away from it real quick and that box disappears, I'm like, no, now I have to fill out the whole document. Fret not, you don't have to. If you miss it or you mess it up, just click autofill and that box will pop back up. You can also add a person from here, which is what I will be doing. I'm going to be adding a person. I'm going to just put my full name here so it doesn't confuse the system. And I will be the buyer. As you can see, there's a ton of information. I'm not doing that for now. I've added myself or added my buyer. Now I'm going to add myself as the buying agent. That's going to be this. Other than that, aside from your buyers and yourself, I don't add anyone else here. I am not sure, transparently, if you add the listing broker here, if it will pull their information from MLS in terms of that contact stuff at the bottom of the offer to purchase. My assumption would be no, but I'm not sure. So if you have any knowledge on that, let me know. All right, then we're going to go on down and make sure that all of the information that we see is correct. Bear with me. This is where we are going to jump around a good bit. So I'm going to take that property address, 1103. I'm going to go into my real estate search for whatever county we are in, 1103. And I'm going to make sure that everything I see is correct and that I am filling out everything appropriately. I am going to start by copying appropriate information. I'm gonna hop back to this real quick. Okay, so I've got the property address. The parcel ID ends in 6427. 6427. Perfect. I'm going to scroll on down. You do have the option to put in your purchase price and earnest money information here. I typically, for some reason, I like to do it once the document is open, but you do have the option to put it in here. Same thing for the rest of the information. For whatever reason, I like to fill this type of stuff out in the document itself, but you do have the option to fill it out here. Mainly though, I am focused on the geographic description and filling that out. I'm going to double check everything. So I'm going to go to MLS. It's in Banbury Woods. I'm going to go over to the real estate website or the county website and just make sure that that looks correct. Yes, lot 102, lot 102. Perfect. If there are any discrepancies between what you are seeing on MLS and what you are seeing on the tax records, reach out to the listing agent. My advice would be to go off of the tax records when it comes to geographic information. But we want to make sure we're touching base with them because if they have anything wrong, we need to make sure that it does not come up as a title issue down the road. And we want to be cutting that off at the pass and addressing it when we're writing an offer. I'm going to paste that in there, lot 102. Then I'm going to go back to my county website and I'm going to find the deed book and page. Now, keep this in mind. Obviously, you guys have written a few offers. I'm sure this isn't the first time you're seeing it, but I just have to say it, right? The order of this on the county website is book and page. I'm going to copy that. When I go back to DotLoop, it is in the order of page and book. So make sure you're switching those back and forth. I always just do it in the order that makes sense to me, which is based on the real estate page, but totally up to you. I'm going to click autofill. Are you sure? Yes, I would love for you to fill in that information. And then anything that has been autofilled, as you can see, will be added in yellow. I'm going to select anything that does not apply. I'm not going to spend too much time filling this out because you know how to do an offer to purchase and we can go over it if needed. But for now, we'll just pretend that I'm writing a list price offer or some random numbers, right? As you can see, whatever I put in, the balance is then showing down below like we talked about. Now, again, this is related to writing an offer, but I just have to say it. We're going to take the seller information. Now, when I am doing this, I recommend going into MLS, downloading their documents, which I've already done, but I'm going to select, oh, well, no, it's not there. Oh, downloads, here we go. I recommend going in, and you probably can't see this screen yet, but bear with me. On this, it says Sherry Burris. I'm going back to the tax records and making sure that that matches what I see. It does, so we are good to go. Now, the reason I say this though is because occasionally we'll see that the tax records slightly match, but aren't quite the same, right? So it might say Sherry Burris on the county website, but then when we look at the disclosures, it says Sherry Burris and Sam Burris, right? Like she might have gotten married, and as we know, it's 1 to buy, 2 to sell. So I, again, recommend, in that case, I actually recommend going by the disclosures and what the seller's names are there, because obviously they're the ones filling it out. But if there is a huge discrepancy, if it's obvious, something like that, where you're like, oh, they got married, then go for it. If for some reason, though, it is dramatically different, again, reach out to the listing agent. I will then take all of that, paste it in. I know it's capitalized. You can do whatever you would like. And we will fill out the rest of the information. Now, when we are doing all of this, because we have added ourselves, it should populate, or since we've added our buyer, it will populate their initial down below. If we have 2 buyers, it will add both of them here. If you need to edit any of it for some reason, if it didn't add them, or if you want to change some things around, sometimes I am of the mindset that if it's only 1 buyer, for some reason, just a peace of mind, I like the other one to not say buyer. I want to make sure that they only have 1 place to sign. You can do that there. But at any point, like you just saw me do, if we need to assign a field to anyone, we can do that by clicking on the highlighted field and selecting whoever it is that needs to fill it out. Our buyers' names will be up top. Now, if I have 2 buyers and I've selected one of them for one of the fields, it very likely will remove that person as an option. And then that way, then one next to it is only the other buyer. I'm going to go through and do all of that we talked about. I'm going to fill out everything specific to the given contract and to the offer according to my client's needs. Like we talked about before, sorry, scrolling down fast. Like we talked about before, though, we're going to make sure that we update that last page with the appropriate information. We also want to make sure that we are double checking that the signature page has been updated as well. Okay, so with that being the case, I'm going to click save. We're going to pretend like I went through the whole contract and I wrote an offer for my client. I'm then going to go back. We're going to get into the stuff that AJ was talking about at the start of this call and making things simple in terms of assigning fields when they are not auto-populated. So I'm now going to go in. I've already downloaded those disclosures from MLS. So I'm going to click downloads. I'm going to upload those. You will see them populated. Now, once they are signed by my buyer, I can then drag and drop them into the executed emoji and property disclosure section. Now, chain of command is very important to keep in mind here for a number of items. One, in terms of chain of command with DotLoop, unlike other signature platforms like DocuSign or things like that, there is not a chain of command for who gets the document when. In DocuSign, for instance, when we get a document from a builder, it is very designated in terms of who gets it first. And once that person has completed their portion, then it goes to the next person and so on, right? So in new construction, for instance, that's very often we as the agent will get the document, we'll have to sign something that acknowledges our brokerage and our commission slip. And then once we've signed it, it will go to the client. Keep that in mind for future reference. If you see it come through in your inbox and you're like, oh, I'll get to that in a second, I just need the clients to sign it. Just know they might not have it yet because it's likely waiting on you. DotLoop is not like that. It will send to everyone all at once. So that's something that's nice to know. It is something to keep in mind though, because if one person has it open, if another person also tries to open it, it will pop up a little box that says either take the document back or someone else has access to it at the moment. So just know that once you get done writing an offer, I typically recommend, and you've sent it to them, I typically recommend closing DotLoop out of your browser so that they don't run into that little circle. Or if they're both opening it up at the same time, they might run into that, just so they know. Now, in terms of chain of command and signatures, though, as we know, the sellers have signed their disclosures. So once our buyers have signed it, we'll drag it and drop it down in here. For now, I'm going to start with the mineral oil and gas. This is what AJ was talking about, because they're right next to each other and they can be such a pain. You're like, I just want to copy and paste. We'll get there. To start off with, though, if there are fields that we need, we're going to click add. We're going to add whatever it is that we need. In this case, it's going to be our initials. I'm going to do that. Now, typically, even though I've done this a million times, for this part of it, I do typically do add initials and just do it individually. Thanks to Nil, who I don't think is on the call, but shout out to her. She showed me, even though it's right in front of me and I'd never seen it, that you can actually copy fields like you would on a Word document, for instance, and it will tell you what you need to do based on whether you have a Mac or a PC. Down in the bottom right corner. So in my case, I'm going to select a few of these, just click one, hold your shift bar down and click any of the others that you would like to copy. In this case, I'm going to do Command Shift C. All right, now I'm assuming,
Okay,
Command Shift V. And I'm going to paste it right there. Did someone have a question for me? Or was that just background noise? Okay.
Background noise.
Okay, cool. So you have that option where you can click and continue to click as you hold the shift key down if you want to select multiple fields. You also, if you want to deselect them, just click away without holding shift. If you want to select all of them together also, you have the option of just clicking outside of the fields and holding it down and dragging until you've covered all of them. That will select all of them. I'm going to do the same thing I just did, Command Shift V, and paste these on down. You can just move them around in a way that fits nicely in your screen. And that dramatically helps us save time.
Can you copy them after you've assigned them to somebody?
Great question. I don't know. Let's try it. Also, just know if you accidentally drop a field in, like let's say I added a signature and I meant to add an initial, select whatever box it is that you're interested in. And if you click this little X, that will remove it for you. Something that's kind of counterintuitive. But let's see. So if I want to select and assign it to multiple people, then I'll do what I just said. I'll select all of them together. I'll click assign. And in this case, I only need one, right? But I'm going to assign it to my buyer, quote unquote. Let's see what you just asked, Amy. If I Command Shift C, Command Shift V, let's see. Yes, awesome. So in that case, it does. Yep. So you're going to do whatever you need to do. I would probably organize these better for my clients, but for now, we're going to keep it moving. As I mentioned before, we're then going to add another field. In this case, it's going to be a signature. You can adjust the size of a given field if you need to. By clicking that, you can make it nice and thin or larger. You can also add dates. This is totally up to you. Just know that when people sign on DotLoop, it has a little signature of sorts within the program, kind of like this, but it will have a little series of numbers that authenticates it, and it will have the date. So in my opinion, I don't typically add another date field. That's totally up to you. If you want to, you certainly can. If for some reason you needed to add text to another document, just know you have all of those options. Okay, I'm going to assign that to myself or to my buyer, excuse me. I'm going to click save. I'm going to go back and do the same thing for my other document, my residential property. Again, I'm not going to go through all of this. You guys know what you need to do in terms of filling out the fields, but for all of these, we obviously want to make sure we're going down and adding initials to these as well. Now with the initials, it's up to you if you add a date next to it. For when you do an initial box, instead of doing the date and timestamp off to the side, it will do it right at the bottom. So it can be a little hard to read. I have never received any pushback from any lenders relating to that, but just know it's kind of a matter of preference. That's how it would show up though. So you'll go through, you'll do all of that and assign everything to the appropriate parties. As I am doing all of this, a few things to note. One, I like to send all of my documents together. Do whatever works for you. Sometimes people are of the mindset that as I finish things, I want to just send this document to my client. That's fine. They're going to get, emails back to back to back. It's totally fine if that's your vibe. But typically what I will do is I'll kind of do them all together. So I'm going to save each document as I go through it, as I complete it, and then I'm going to send everything together in just a moment. Again, one thing to note, I'm going to change the name of this given document. That is a lot. Now, when we send this to ourselves as a buyer, which we'll reference in just a moment, we'll be able to see this more specifically. But just so you know in advance, when we send documents to our clients, whether it's one or a number of documents together, it will say Kate Stedman, agent name, has sent 4 documents to you, and it will list the names of the documents. If these are the names of the documents, that is quite overwhelming, personally, I think, right? So I'll typically change the title of them. You can do that there. Also, in case I haven't mentioned it yet, I don't think I have, you can also change the name of your loop by clicking on the loop title itself and clicking within it. You can change it there. You can also go in and add additional information if you would like to. From a compliance standpoint at Choice, we do not require that this be completely filled out, but if that's something that really helps you stay organized, by all means, just know that that's where you find it. If you want to update a picture, or if it didn't have one and you want to add one, you can do that there. Just click save. You can go back to the loop. Okay, so what I will then do is I will select any document that I'm going to be sending to my clients. Now, if this is our first offer, obviously we will be sending them all of them. If it is not our first offer, I typically will just send them the associated documents for the transaction itself. And then I will go back to my previous loop from them. And just like I did from the template section, I will make a copy from that loop to my new loop. So something to keep in mind real quick is if this isn't our first offer, if we've already written one for a client and they didn't get it, and it's been a little while, maybe they took a break, but it was short enough where we know that our agency agreement is still active, then we can go in and we can just search for them, just like we did at the beginning of what I talked about. You can find that loop and transfer it over. So I know I personally, we see so many houses and we love our clients, but I don't remember property addresses, no matter how much they loved them. I typically will search by name. So fret not, if you have no idea what that other house was, you can search by their name and copy those agency documents over from there. So to practice, what I'm going to do is I'm going to select the documents that we are interested in. I'm going to click share. And as you can see, it will show you all of the documents that are being sent over. Now, it will also show you how many fields are assigned to a given person. So if I have 2 buyers, I always pay attention. I mean, I want to pay attention to this in general, but especially if I have 2 of them, I always pay attention to this because this number should be the same. Now, if I have assigned some random field to one other person or something like that, obviously they might be different, but most of the time these should all be the same. I'm then going to add a custom message here. I'm going to say, hey clients, or, hey Kate, hey Sarah, documents, please let me know once you've signed. Okay, a few things to note here. Real quick, there is a reason I'm adding spaces here because I want you to see how this appears. I'm going to give you a little overview prior is that when we send this, everything in this will be combined into one. I did not know that for probably about 4 years. And so for 4 years, I was sending an entire overview of the terms of their contracts in this section. Don't do that. If you want to send an overview of what they can find where, which I would recommend kind of getting in the habit of, if you build a template in your emails, it makes it nice and easy. But I'll typically go through and I'll say, you know, your purchase prices on page 1, same thing, right? Like break down what's on what page. Do that in an email. Don't do that here. I will always then attach it as a PDF. Oh, my Zoom is in the way of where I need to click. There we go. Okay, attach to email and then share. These documents have been shared. We are waiting on others. Now, at any point, if for some reason someone's like, I am not seeing it, like I know I sent it, will you check your spam? Obviously make that first ask. But if for some reason you need to resend anything, just know you can click right here where it says reshare. You can select whoever it is that you're interested in, and you can click can sign or change whatever view only, but I typically will say can sign, and you can just reshare it from there. Okay, going to click done. Now, a few things. One, we will get an email. That's going to try to show you, but it shows up weird. Okay, so when it comes through, this is what it will look like. Kate Stedman via DotLoop. And then this is what it says, which I really wish we could customize the title of it, but we can't. So just know it will tell them how many documents they have to sign, and it will tell them what the name of that loop is, which is why it's so important to keep it professional and be very standard with how you do it, right? We're not going to add some nickname for our clients here. We're going to make sure that it's either their full name or, like I said before, 1,000,000 times over, I recommend doing your property address. This is what I wanted to show you though. It will tell you what we've sent over, but then when we look at that section of the notes that I sent, it's all combined, even though I had it in 3 different lines, right? So again, can be quite overwhelming. I would keep it short, whatever your message is here. Something to note though, there's a reason I send this to us. I think there's great value in seeing what our clients see, because inevitably we're going to get that call. It's like, I don't see it, or I don't know what's going on. And if we haven't done this from the client's perspective, it can be very hard to walk them through it. One thing to note is it says view all documents. I really, really, really wish that it said, click here to sign or click here to start signing. It doesn't though. And so if clients get confused, just make sure they know that's where they start. When they click on that, it will take them to a web page that has all of the documents that we have sent to them in one consolidated document, in essence, just pages back to back to back. Okay. So what we're going to have them do is click start signing, and it will then push them to every single field that they need to sign or initial. When you first click on it, it will get them to confirm how they would like it to appear. And then from there, they just click. They do have to click every single one, which is why please try to get it right from the start, because it can be annoying to have to resend things and have them re-sign it, right? It'll do that for all of them. It will push them through to every single thing they need to sign. It will tell them how many fields have been completed. Once they are finished, they might end up all the way at the bottom, right? I always tell people, I get in a habit of, after I've sent it, I will send them a text and say, hey, all of your documents are in your inbox. Just send me a text when you think you're done, because I want to make sure that I'm on the same page as they are. I don't know why it shows up like this, but just know, even though the lines that appear, sorry, I'm scrolling pretty fast, but I want to give an example. The lines that are on the pages of any given document fade out a little bit when there's a field that we've entered. I know it looks a little funky, but just know that once they've signed and once that document is complete, it will go back to looking the way that it did on our templates and like a standard document. So fret not. The reason I say all of this, Once they are done, once I get that text, hopefully I will know it and hopefully I will have gotten a notification, but they need to make sure they have clicked I'm done. Obviously I'm not, but that's okay. I just want you to see you skipped a few pages. It will let them know if they have missed anything. I'm going to skip that for now. Okay. With that being the case, I can go into my loop. Oh my goodness. Why are you doing this to me? There we go. Sorry, y'all. All right, you can go in and you will be able to see what the status is of a given document over to the right. So if all parties have signed, it will say that here. If there are two buyers, it will likely say, either if everyone has signed, it will say signed. It very often might also say, so-and-so has signed, waiting on so-and-so, or so-and-so has viewed it, waiting on them to sign. It will give you an update of whatever that status is. If they have partially signed it, it will show you here. So in that case, that is one of those situations where I might say, I'm going to reshare this with them. You can do that from the document internally if you would like to, or you can do it from up above. Once you select a given document, it will give you the option of what you would like to do with it. Now, if they have completed everything, then you can go ahead and download it. A few things to note: when you download it, whatever you have selected, if you click the three dots over to the right and click download, it will download that document individually. If you go up to the top though, and you click download, it will download whatever you have selected all as one document. So do whatever feels right to you. Typically what I will do though, is I'll either download all of them individually, or I will download the offer to purchase individually, and then I will download the disclosures together as one document, if you would like to, whatever makes you comfortable. Now, like I said, once they have signed, I can then drag and drop those into the associated field, and it will take that place. Now, one thing, occasionally you might run into the situation where, oh my gosh, I dropped it into the wrong field, right? Fret not, you can always go in to that given document or into the loop itself, click activity, and it will show, oh, I added this to this section. I can go ahead and click back on a previous document or on a previous status, and it will revert it to the status that it was in at that time. So just know if we make any mistakes, we have the option to kind of undo them there. That's pretty much it in terms of how we organize things and how we utilize the system. Now, these placeholders are in place so that we know what we need to be doing. If they are required, it will show as much, but obviously we really do need all of these for our fields. So for instance, the MLS listing, I would then go in, I would click print plus, and download it as a PDF. I would then upload that as a PDF document by clicking browse and uploading it there to my loop, right? Doing the same thing. You can also click a given document itself. If I wanted to, if I'd done that, I could just drag it into the appropriate field, or I could click it here and add a file along the left-hand side. I can drag any of these around in terms of order by just clicking and holding. Most importantly, though, we can then submit for review. Now, this is totally up to you as you get more and more experienced. We only require that you really submit things once your offer has been accepted, but especially as you're newer and as you're getting started, we'd recommend that as you write offers, you go ahead and just submit those to Kelly for compliance. Because if there's anything that we're missing or anything that we need to add to our rhythm of what we're sending to clients and how we're organizing things, we'd much rather know it on the front end. And then that way we can make a quick tweak for the next time around than find out after we're under contract or as we're right about to close, right? So as we submit for review, what we're going to do is click submit for review. We do not need to go in and select the documents themselves. We simply do submit for review from the top right. From there, you will select the folder that you are interested in. So as you're first submitting a loop to clients. You're going to do both agency and contract. But as you get your contract section updated, let's say you do an agreement to amend, after due diligence, you've negotiated some prices down, then you might need to just select that one. As we have things that directly associate or affect the transaction, we need to be submitting for compliance. So that's going to be purchase price changes and changes associated to the closing date. I would recommend, if you have not used DotLoop yet, to go ahead and write a sample offer and then to submit it for review to Kelly, just so you get in this habit of seeing how that works and you get all of your questions answered on the front end. If you do that and you do it as a practice, just put that in the note section and say, hey, I just want to do a little practice loop. Will you just look this over and make sure I'm on the right track? You can click submit. I'm not going to do that for now, but just know it's an option. You can also chat with people through here. If I wanted to talk to Kelly and just say, hey, I have a question about a document, is this the right one? You can do that through there. Obviously, she's going to be looking at these things when she is in front of her computer. So if there's something urgent, obviously reach out to myself, Kelly, or Brian, and we can answer any questions that you have. But that's kind of the standard of what you are going to be using here. Now, the main thing that I want to make sure we talk about is the fact that only our clients should be signing things through DotLoop, and only our clients should be communicated with through DotLoop. We are never going to be sending, please, please, please promise me you won't be that agent that submits your offers through DotLoop. One, because you got to hope they even get it, right? Like if we as a listing agent aren't on the lookout for it, we don't know if we're going to be getting an offer through DotLoop. We might be just checking our inbox and seeing, oh my gosh, this offer looks amazing. And that's the one we presented to our clients. We have to hope that somehow they see it. Also, though, we want to advocate for our clients, right? We want to write a nice little cover letter. Anytime I'm submitting an offer, I will have an email template that I use that just at the top has a little intro that says, thank you so much for reviewing our offer. We look forward to the opportunity to work with you and your sellers. Here's a little bit about them. I'll write a little overview summary, obviously nothing fair housing related, but I might talk about the fact that they're a past client of mine. I've known them for a number of years. This is their second home purchase. They've been looking in this area for some time. They really love the layout, right? I'm keeping it property specific basically, but I'm showing that they're very interested. And then I normally have a little quote that says something along the lines of they're educated about the process. They know what to expect through due diligence and inspections and appraisals, and they are committed to closing. And then I'll have some bullet points with the terms, right? If we are doing this all through DotLoop, we completely miss that opportunity to do that. And I'm telling you right now, doing a cover letter email for when you are writing your offers and putting NA in any fields that don't relate can get you a deal, right? Like if there are two offers that we get that are almost identical from the listing side, I'm going to tell that to my client. Like this person was really diligent. They reached out as soon as they sent it over by text. So I know they're good at communicating. They filled out all of these fields. Like this agent is on top of their stuff. It can matter. So just know that if you do send anything through DotLoop, let's see if this will come up. Okay.
Hey, Kate, I have a question.
Yeah, what you got?
The kind of cover letter that you send with your offers, is there like a way that you could share something like that? So, I mean, I have one, but you know I don't put in mine like a little bit about my client,
Yeah, absolutely. I've shared them in the past and I'm more than happy to share it again. I have a template that I am ready to share with you guys, and I can do that when I send out the recording and the slides for this class. Just know I have it set up so that any field that is specific to you altering and specific to your client, I typically highlight in blue, and then obviously make sure you change the little like bio section. But yes, by all means, I will absolutely send that over. Just know if you do send over an offer or documents or both through DotLoop, this is what it will look like. I had a listing that was out in Clayton right around the end of COVID time. So we got a good number of offers. I think we got like 8 or 10 total, something like that. And as you can see, 5 of them were sent to me through DotLoop. And so when that takes place, it looks like they might have deleted it. They might have updated their loop, but literally it is just the documents. So just know that we're also not going to send anything to our attorney or our lender Again, we just don't know if they're even going to see it. We want to keep everything in place and make things nice and simple. Okay, I think that's about it for DotLoop. While I am on all of this, a few things. One, just play around with it. I'm sure most of you guys are not new to this, but find your rhythm, find whatever works for you, and just kind of click around, use yourself as an example, see what the client sees. And like I said, please feel free to let me know if there's anything I can do, or if there's, maybe there's a certain document that you want to go through that you're not familiar with. If we don't have a video for it, I'm more than happy to hop on a Zoom real quick and go through it with you guys. So before I hop back into our slides, though, is there anything that you guys have questions about that we either went over or that we didn't, that you were really hoping that we might review today? Nope. All right, y'all, love to hear that. A few more things to just keep in mind now that we've gone through all of that. Like I said before, each loop is its own transaction, and each transaction loop is associated with a given client and with a property. You know it. But like I said on the front end, if you do it for one property and you try to do it for another, it will send you in circles and drive you crazy. And it will likely try to auto revert almost any property address to that initial field. It can be a little frustrating. Like I just mentioned, you get the point. Only us and our clients, not lenders, not attorneys, not other agents. We always want to make sure we're using the most recent forms for so many reasons, but also just because sometimes our buyers or sellers get more coverage out of a given one. And also same thing goes for sending the cover letter and putting NA in those fields. It says a lot when an agent doesn't send the appropriate form, in my opinion. I had a listing a few months ago, and we got a number of investment offers from large corporations, and almost every single one of them were using outdated forms by at least a year. One of them was like 3 years. And I'm just like, come on. I mean, you're already writing a really low offer and you don't even use the right forms. There's no way this transaction will go well. Do you even, with all due respect, do you know what you're talking about? Right? It kind of gives that impression, and we don't want to be the ones that are giving that impression. One thing to note, though, if we do have something that's pending and then the form becomes outdated. So for example, if we have a new construction deal and our agency agreement is from one of the old forms, but the date of it covers us all the way through closing, for example, we don't need to change that form and we can use it as is. The date is associated with the time that we went under contract, not the date that we're closing. Get your template set up. So as you have time, go ahead and do this, or make a template loop specific to buyers. And it would be my recommendation, it's totally up to you. I would make a separate template loop specific to your sellers and just go ahead and do the things that you use most commonly. And not only your buyer agency agreement and working with real estate and your offer to purchase, but I would also do this for things like your agreement to amend or additional provisions, addendum, things that you might use frequently. Granted, I don't know if there's much that you would add as a template that's not property specific for those types of documents, but just get used to using them. And, as much as we provide our clients the guidance to let us know as soon as possible when they're ready to write an offer, or, my availability is pretty limited on Sundays, please know that if there's an offer deadline on Sunday, I'm really expecting that we write that offer on Saturday. We want to be one of the first people in the door, and I can't promise I'm going to be at my computer on Sunday, right? No matter how many times we do these scripts with our clients, there's always going to be those situations where we get that text at 2 o'clock with a 3 o'clock offer deadline, and they're like, okay, we're ready. And you're like, oh my gosh, I hope I can even get it to you in time, right? So if we've got these templates set up, it really helps us streamline that process and make it a lot faster for getting them out to our clients and therefore getting them to the appropriate parties. Get familiar with where different documents are kept and what the file numbers are. Most commonly, the ones that we are going to be associated with are going to be the 100s and 200s. That's going to be the 2 series. Again, as you have questions about them, if you're looking through those folders, hover over the document name. That will tell us what the full document title is, and that should give you some indication on if you're in the right area or not. The most common issue we see, though, is that you might accidentally select the 500 series, either for an offer to purchase or mainly for a referral. That's pretty common to run into. So just know we want to be looking for the correct field. If you also have any questions, maybe you selected the wrong one by accident, just pay attention. If you select the wrong one, if it's commercial, it should show it either at the top left or at the top center of the document. But we also have miscellaneous addenda and things like that. I would recommend, if you are someone that regularly sends out referrals or gets referrals, I would just make a template loop or a loop specific to all of your referrals. And then once someone gets under contract, or if it's a buyer that has been referred to you and you get them under contract, then like we did for everything else, you can make a copy of that document from your referral loop to the loop associated specific with that client. Chain of command, like we said, everyone gets it at the same time. So with that in mind, make sure you've closed out your stuff. If they keep running into an issue with it, and they're like, it says someone else has it, open your computer back up, make sure you've closed it out. I typically tell them, hey, you go ahead and close it out too, and just re-click that email I sent you. If this is kind of taking a step back, but if for some reason we've sent them 3 documents, right? And they're going through, they've signed almost all of them, or they've opened them at least, and they notice that something we've put in is incorrect, and we need to make a change and we need to resend it to them. Typically what I will do, as long as they haven't signed the other documents to completion, is I will say, okay, sit tight real quick, don't sign any of those. I'll send you all of the documents again together, and then you click on that and go from that link. That way they're not like, okay, where do I stop for this one and then jump to this other email, right? Everything is all together. Also, real quick, one thing we didn't talk about, this is kind of a compliance and BIC type statement, but want to make sure we've said it. Any changes to a contract, we need to make sure we're really making that one an amendment and not the contract itself. Now, granted, if we are representing a buyer, we submit an offer, they give us a counter. As we know, we as the buy side, if they give us a counter, we are going to go in and make that change. But after we have gone under contract, after everyone has executed everything, if there are any changes to purchase price, dates, things of that sort, we want to make sure that we are making changes to the amendment and not to the contract. If we make changes to the contract, it could affect technically, according to the contract, the way in which those dates are taken into account. So just something to keep in mind. Understand also that you are in charge of getting paid and that you are in charge of submitting things to compliance as things are completed. Please, please, please don't wait until you are past closing to send everything to compliance, because we want to make sure that everything is in order. And if there's anything that we need updated or anything that might have been missed that we need you to get signed by your client, it's just a lot less awkward to have them do it before closing than afterwards, right? I have run into an agent at the office that had just closed on something and was about to send the professional services disclosure to their client, even though they'd closed earlier that day, right? So go ahead and send everything to compliance as you get it done. If you have closed on something and you have submitted something and you have not yet gotten paid on it, before you panic, reach out to Kelly, reach out to Brian, and just say, hey, is there anything that I need for compliance? Or send it in the little message box and just say, hey, is there anything I need to make sure that this gets done? And then, like I said, update everything. That little section at the top, like we were talking about, you'll see here as an example. So this, for instance, was the new construction that I had. It was under contract for 1.5 years. That was not the initial closing date though. And so I had to make sure that anytime we heard from the builder, we made sure to update this closing date and the purchase price. Unfortunately, it was one of those situations where they were able to raise the price after cost of goods went up. So things like that, we want to make sure that we are adding. If something unfortunately gets terminated, we also need to make sure that we are changing the status of that. This is how we as a brokerage keep track of what's going to be closing when. All right, y'all. That was short and sweet. I know I really cranked through it, but I also know that when we're going over documents, it can be a little boring, especially if you've done it before. So I don't want to bore you to pieces. I want to make sure I provide some time for you guys to do it for yourself. But last call, is there anything that you saw today that you have a question about, or is there anything that we didn't go over? Or maybe it's not necessarily DotLoop related, but maybe a document that you saw that you have any questions on. All right, y'all. I love leading
I
you.
have one thing, and
Yeah.
I'm sorry I had to run out on the call. And I know it was recorded, but did you go over how to like hold a button and put multiple initials down?
Mhm. Yep,
Okay, I just wanted
absolutely.
to make sure because I missed that part.
Yeah, no worries at all. I'll send you a little screen recording of just that one section when we get off of here, since everyone saw it. But yeah, no worries. I can definitely do that. Thank you guys so much for hopping on. I appreciate your time. It's one
Good
of those things.
class.
Thank you. I try to keep it short and sweet. I know this is one of those ones where I'm kind of rambling. So I'll cut it nice and short here. But if you guys have any questions, just let me know. I know it's one of those things that you normally don't have questions until you're like actually in it. So no worries at all. That's what I'm here for. Reach out anytime. I appreciate you guys. Thanks for
Thanks,
spending your
Kate.
morning with me.
I do have one question for you too,
Yeah.
Kate. I know I'm full of questions today, but I'm in the
I love
process of
it.
learning all this. So how many you do a template for your offer to purchase? You do a template for what else do you do a template for?
Buyer agency.
Buyer
Mhm.
agency.
Buyer agency. I'll do one for my listing agreements.
Okay.
And then mainly also for like referral forms.
Okay.
I pretty much start with those. And then if there's stuff that I start running into, then I'll add it. One of the other ones that lately, I mean, I don't work with clients anymore, but one of the ones that I, during COVID, was very used to using and therefore created a template for was the agreement, what is the agency renewal document? Because especially with new construction, we had one deadline and then that ended up being like a year later, right? So I had to extend agency a few times. That one I'll typically add as a template as well.
Okay, because I had no idea about doing a template like this, and matter of fact, this one that I just got up under contract, the client was very eager to go see this property, and he told me, he says, I'm about 90% sure I'm gonna put an offer in. I said, okay. So I went ahead and started working on everything the day before and had it just sitting there ready because I mean it does take me some time to run through there, but if you already got everything pre-selected, it wouldn't take that much time.
Yeah, absolutely. That's what I was just looking at to make sure I didn't miss anything. But yeah, totally. I mean, it can definitely save you some time. And it also just helps with consistency and making sure that when we're in the thick of it, we aren't missing those little NA things. Because if we are up against the timeline and we don't have a template made, then those are going to be the first things that you skip over because you want to make sure you're getting in the good stuff to get it in the deadline. So yeah, absolutely. But I mean, I've certainly done that plenty of times. If I have someone that's hot and heavy and I'm like, I do not want to have to write this offer at like 10 o'clock at night if I can help it, then I'm going to go ahead and draft it. I don't know. I am a little superstitious though. So sometimes I'll wait because I'm like, if I write it up, they might not do it. So whatever is your preference, but I hear you.
Well, that's the thing is like, I didn't really want to, but I was like, I need to make this fast because I want to go ahead and get the offer in as quick as possible. But then they waited because they said, I think we looked at it on a Friday. No, we looked at it on a Saturday. It went on live on a Friday. And then on Saturday, we went and looked at it. And I was trying to get it in as soon as possible. But then they made the deadline Monday at 12 o'clock. I'd already had to offer it. But the good part about it is my client, it actually went over asking price. He actually he started out 5,000 over asking, and then he was a little uneasy about it. He really wanted the property. He said, let's make it 10,000 over asking price.
Yeah.
And so we ended up going on contract, and even the listing agent told me, she said, that's what kind of made that deal was going 10,000 over asking price. And I was like, oh, wow. So I don't know how many offers she had, but I know there was about 12 showings on it.
I love that. Yeah. And I mean, that does happen. Sometimes you'll write it up and send it to them and then they'll get to talking and be like, we want it too bad. Go up again. Like, okay.
Yeah. And I don't mind doing it because it increases my paycheck. So
yeah. 5K doesn't make too much of a difference, but I do hear you. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, well, we started off with 5,000 and I knew it would make my paycheck go up a little bit, but then another 5,000. So we're actually 10,000 over asking. I'm like, yeah, my paycheck gonna go up a little bit more. I mean, way I look at it, if it's $1 more, it's $1 I didn't have.
True that.
So I just want to I'm gonna sit here. I'm in between my downtimes. I'm gonna get my templates wrote up then and make it a lot easier. Because I was wondering how agents was like, oh, I can have it done in 20 minutes, and I'm like, dang, y'all are seasoned then in 20 minutes. This is how they're doing it. It's a trick.
I mean, like I said, though, I really did. Bye, Billy Joe. Like I said, though, I mean, my first offer, I wrote it in an open house with another agent that I was shadowing, and it took me an hour and a half because I just was so paranoid I was going to miss something. I mean, this is a contract and it's a large financial decision. Like I can't mess it up, you know. But now I kind of play a game with myself, and I'll look at the clock and be like, I wonder how fast I can get this done, you know.
So another question is like if you go to a listing appointment, are you, because I've noticed when we're looking at documents, the mineral oil and gas rights, the residential property disclosure, I'm seeing a lot of like hand signatures on them from
Mhm.
listings. So is people, and I know this is probably a rookie question, but you know, everybody's got to start somewhere. When you're going to a listing appointment, they're printing it out and taking it with them, and that way they ain't got to set up the computer and shoot it over to them. I mean, what is that what people are doing to make it faster?
So it's all a matter of personal preference. I think it's twofold. I think it's one, if someone wants to sign something when I'm sitting right in front of them, I don't want any delay. And I want to be able to just push that paper over and be like, wonderful, we'll do this right now. I also think mainly in terms of the residential property disclosure, it's just a lot easier, in my opinion, to do it by hand. But you certainly can send it over through DotLoop. Real quick, since I have a few of you on, let me just reshare the screen real quick, and I'll see if I can kind of show you what I'm talking about here. But so if I have a listing appointment coming up, I will go ahead and I will add, you can add the property address. But typically, if we're sending this over, normally what I'll do is I'll fill out the listing agreement to the best of my ability with their information. And I will save that without sending it. I'll save that. And then I will also download it and print it and bring that with me. I won't fill out things like their mortgage payoff and things like that I might not know, just because I don't want to cross through anything, but I'll fill out as much as I can. I'll print that off and bring it with me. I will then print off and bring with me a blank version of the residential property disclosure, because if they are filling it out by hand, I don't know why, but for some reason, I really want them to write out their property address and their name. It just feels better to me. But if they want to do it on the computer, they can. I just feel like it's a little annoying because every single field that they have to fill out, we have to assign to someone, even as an option. And so this, since I have you, this is kind of what we're talking about. So selecting multiple fields, you can either click it, hold the shift, and then click the other ones that need assigning, and you can do it that way. Or you can click outside of it and drag and cover everything that you're associating. So I would do this for the whole document, basically. You'll have to do it in different sections because the whole document won't be visible as you're viewing the screen, but you can select all of them and then you can assign it to a given person. Because this isn't a template loop, I don't have a client, right? But I can assign it to a given person. And if I do that, they can go in and they can type things and they can click the check boxes. I do think this document is a little confusing though. And so if they do it online, they might miss certain things. And then I'm going to have to go back and be like, hey, this one field you missed and this checkbox, or like you only select one, right? In my opinion, this document is just so much easier to do in person because I can advise them on it. But it's just a matter of personal preference. And I think it's just like, if someone wants to sign it, let's get it done. Also, it can be one of those things that I might talk about this document. I might talk about some of these systems when I'm in the home with them. And so typically I'll print it out and bring it with me, but then I'll say, hey, you fill this out. I'm going to come by in a few days. I normally do some like last minute staging, or I want to make sure that it's done and that the blinds are in place before photos, whatever the case may be. I'm normally coming back to the property again. And so I'll say, hey, when I come back next time, just have these documents ready for me. I'll send you the listing agreement and any other items that they might need, right, according to their loop. I'll send that to you by computer, but in the meantime, go ahead and fill this out, right? And so I'll have that by hand. It's just a matter of preference.
Okay, I mean, I was just wondering, I mean, like I said, being, you know, a few years into it, I haven't really got my rhythm on what I wanted to do and how I wanted to do it, but I'm just starting to notice that people do things differently. And I'm like, okay, is this just people that are stuck in the old school way, or, you know, is it they're getting in there and they're putting all the paperwork in front of them and saying, you know, okay, you know, if you're ready to list, we can sit here and sign it all right now.
I think it's a mix of both. And I also think that it's kind of a technology thing of like, I just want to make sure that everything gets signed and I don't want to miss anything. So it's just a matter of preference. I also just, for some reason, and this is totally probably a projection, but again, kind of taking it back to like the little things and what that means in terms of how people handle things. For some reason, I feel like I trust residential property disclosures a little bit more when I see that they're handwritten by the clients, because then I know that they physically checked it off. If they're going through the computer, it might be a little, they might quickly select things by accident. I don't know. It's just a matter of preference, but it doesn't matter too much. I'm just always a big fan of disclose as much as possible, provide them as much information as you can. We want to make sure we're an open book to people. Oh, all right, y'all. Thank you for your time. I appreciate it. I know this isn't the most exciting class, so thanks for bearing with me. Let me know if you have any questions. Bye, y'all. Have a great day.
Bye.